Story title: Leaving the Past Behind. Mike's journey from broken to thriving. Living well is the best revenge. Betrayed and left behind, Mike had every reason to seek revenge. But instead of looking back, he built a new life, one of success, happiness, and freedom. When the past comes knocking, he makes a choice that proves the best revenge isn't payback. It's moving forward. Join me in this powerful story of resilience and triumph, because sometimes winning means simply walking away. Stay tuned. Closing the Past, Part 1. Mike never thought he would see them again, Chloe, Stephanie, and Ela. But then, on a gray afternoon, they walked into his diner as if time had never passed. Chloe still had that same expression, half pride, half feigned weakness. Stephanie stood with her arms crossed, while Ela kept her gaze down, avoiding his eyes. They weren't here to check in on him, nor to apologize. They came for something else: money. Mike looked at them, feeling exhaustion creep in rather than anger. Back then, when he was nothing more than a nobody in their eyes, he had dreamed of this moment, the moment they would have to come back and beg him. But now that it was actually happening, all he felt was emptiness. No arguments, no accusations. He simply reached for his checkbook, wrote out a check for exactly $73.50, just some loose change from the diner's cash register, and slid it across the counter. Not enough to change anyone's life, but just enough to make them understand it was all he was willing to give. Out in the parking lot, Chloe cried. Stephanie yelled something, and Ela just stood there, small and withdrawn. But Mike didn't care anymore. He stood inside, watching them through the glass for a moment, then turned away. The door closed, and with it, so did the past. Closing the Past, Part 2. Weeks had passed since Chloe, Stephanie, and Ela walked into Mike's diner, since he slid that $73.50 check across the counter and watched them argue in the parking lot, since he turned his back and shut the door for good. And in those weeks, something strange happened. They disappeared. No calls, no emails, not even a whisper on LinkedIn. Mike expected some sort of backlash, maybe an angry message, maybe one last attempt at guilt-tripping him. But nothing came. They were really gone this time. At first, he kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. Every time his phone buzzed, every time a new customer walked into the diner, a small part of him braced for their return. But as the days stretched into weeks, that feeling faded. The quiet settled in like a long-awaited peace. Now, standing in his kitchen, stirring a pot of chili on the stove, Mike felt it deep in his bones. He was free. The smell of spices filled the house, warm and rich. Sienna sat at the dining table, grading papers, her glasses slipping down her nose. Their kids ran wild in the backyard, their laughter spilling through the open window. It was chaos, but it was his chaos. Real, honest, untouched by the ghosts of the past. "Smells good," Sienna said, glancing up with that small smile he loved. "Better be," Mike shot back, grinning. She laughed, soft and easy. The kids burst in a second later, their voices loud, their energy endless. Their son waved a muddy stick, their daughter shrieked about a bug she found outside. "Both of you, wash up now," Mike ordered, pointing to the sink. Groans, complaints, but they obeyed, splashing water everywhere. Mike just shook his head, smiling. This was it. This was everything. At work, the diners thrived. Regulars knew his name: Old Tom with his morning coffee, the trucker who tipped big, the lady who always asked for extra napkins. They all greeted him the same way. "Hey, Mike." And he greeted them back, knowing he belonged here. Chloe, Stephanie, Ela, they were nothing more than shadows now. He didn't check their social media, didn't waste time wondering where they were or if they still blamed him. They came begging, and he gave them what they deserved: a mirror, not a handout. And that was enough. That weekend, Mike took Sienna and the kids to the park. The leaves crunched under their boots. Their son ran ahead, kicking a ball. Their daughter clung to his hand, pointing excitedly at every squirrel. Sienna nudged him. "You're quiet." Mike smiled, just happy. And he meant it. Want more gripping stories like this? Hit that subscribe button and join me on this journey of powerful storytelling. Closing the Past, Part 3. Mike didn't look over his shoulder anymore. For years he had lived with that habit, waiting. Waiting for the next betrayal, the next demand, the next guilt trip disguised as an apology. But now he just lived. The diners thrived, his home was warm and steady, and most importantly, his past had no hold on him anymore. One morning, as he flipped burgers behind the counter, a familiar figure walked into the diner. Jacqueline. Her tattoos had faded, but her sharp glare hadn't. She looked around, taking in the clean floors, the steady hum of customers, the scent of fresh coffee in the air. Then, with a short nod, she said, "You didn't screw it up." And just like that, she clapped his shoulder and walked out. Mike chuckled to himself, pouring coffee for a table. Coming from Jacqueline, that was high praise. At one point in his life, he might have wanted more than that. Some grand recognition, some validation from the people who once doubted him. But he didn't need it anymore. What mattered was this: the regulars who knew his name. The waitress who cracked jokes while balancing 3 plates at once. The smell of sizzling bacon in the mornings. This life, messy, simple, real, was his, and no one could take it away. That night, he sat at the kitchen table with Sienna and the kids. The chili was a little too spicy, but they ate it anyway, laughing and complaining at the same time. Their son tried to steal the last dinner roll. Their daughter smacked his hand away. Sienna rolled her eyes. "I swear, you two are worse than the customers at the lunch rush." Mike just smiled, watching them bicker, feeling something settle deep in his chest. Chloe wanted him to break. She wanted him to crawl back, to beg for forgiveness for sins he never committed. But instead, he had walked away and kept walking. He thought about her for a second. About that moment in the parking lot, her voice cracking, her hands shaking. But just as quickly as she appeared in his mind, she faded. She couldn't touch this. She couldn't touch him. Mike leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. This was the best revenge. Not a fight, not an argument, not rubbing it in their faces, just living well. Closing the Past, Part 4. The days rolled on, smooth and steady. School runs in the morning, diner shifts in the afternoon. Quiet nights with Sienna on the couch, her feet tucked under a blanket, her glasses slipping down her nose as she graded papers. It wasn't exciting, it wasn't dramatic, but it was real, and it was his. Mike no longer checked on Chloe. No fake social media accounts, no late-night scrolling to see where she was, what she was doing, who she had become after everything fell apart. Once, years ago, he had made that mistake. He had watched from a distance as she played the role of the grieving widow, as if she hadn't been the one who walked away first. He had seen Stephanie and Ela lurking in the background, their lives unraveling, but their pride keeping them from admitting it. Not anymore. Now, he didn't need to know. He didn't care. One crisp fall afternoon, Mike and Sienna took the kids to the park. The leaves crunched beneath their boots as their son ran ahead, kicking a soccer ball across the grass. Their daughter clung to Mike's hand, pointing excitedly at every squirrel that scurried past. Sienna walked beside him, their arms brushing. They didn't need to talk much, just breathe, just be. For a brief moment, Chloe's face flickered in his mind. Her wide eyes, her trembling hands, the desperate way she had tried to pull him back into her mess. And then, just as quickly, she was gone. She couldn't take this from him. She couldn't even come close. Mike had built it all without her, despite her. And it was better than anything she'd ever offered. "You're quiet," Sienna murmured, nudging him gently. Mike exhaled, feeling the crisp air fill his lungs. "Just happy." She squeezed his hand. "Good." That night, they ate leftover chili around the dinner table. The kids whined about it being too spicy, but they still shoveled it down. Mike watched them, listened to their playful arguments over the last dinner roll, and felt something deep and unshakable settle inside him. This was it. The best revenge, if you could even call it that, wasn't revenge at all. It was living well. Living real. Loving this story? Hit that subscribe button for more. Let's keep this journey going, because sometimes, the best way to win is simply to walk away. Closing the Past, Part 5. Life kept moving, steady and sure. Mike no longer thought about Chloe. Not really. Sure, sometimes her face flickered in his mind, her smirk, her fake tears, the way she had tried to twist the past to fit her own story. But those moments didn't last. Whenever they surfaced, he had a simple remedy. He turned up the radio, flipped another burger, hugged his daughter a little tighter, and just like that, she faded, a shadow that could no longer reach him. The diners were thriving. Mike bounced between all 3 locations, checking stock, flipping burgers, and joking with the waitresses. The regulars knew him now. Old Tom with his coffee, the trucker who always tipped big, the lady who insisted on extra napkins. They'd nod and say, "Hey, Mike," and he'd nod back, feeling like he belonged. One morning, Jacqueline stopped by the first diner. Her tattoos were faded now, but her sharp gaze was the same. She took one long look around, then crossed her arms. "You didn't screw it up," she said. Then, just like that, she clapped his shoulder and walked out. Mike chuckled, shaking his head. High praise, coming from her. He didn't check on Chloe anymore. Didn't wonder where she was or what she was doing. Years ago, he had let curiosity win. He had scrolled through her carefully curated posts, watched her play the part of the wronged woman. Not anymore. She was out there somewhere, living whatever life she had managed to scrape together after everything crumbled. Maybe she was still mad. Maybe Stephanie and Ela still blamed her. Maybe they all still blamed him. It didn't matter. They had come begging, and he had shut the door. That $73.50 check was the last thing he would ever give them. Just enough to walk away, like they had once left him to do. And he didn't feel bad, didn't feel guilty. He felt free. That weekend, Mike and Sienna took the kids to a fall festival. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of roasted peanuts and caramel apples. Their son ran ahead, challenging other kids to a race. Their daughter clung to Sienna's hand, her eyes wide with wonder as she pointed at the towering Ferris wheel. Mike watched them, hands tucked in his pockets, the weight in his chest long gone. Chloe wanted him to break, to crawl back, to regret, but he hadn't. He had walked away, and he had won. Closing the Past, Part 6. The days kept rolling, simple and steady. School runs in the morning, diner shifts in the afternoon, quiet nights on the couch with Sienna, her feet tucked under a blanket, grading papers while he scrolled through new menu ideas. Mike had stopped looking over his shoulder, stopped waiting for another surprise visit, another demand, another reminder of the past trying to claw its way back in. Chloe, Stephanie, and Ela were gone. Really gone. And he was still here. One afternoon, he stood behind the counter of his first diner, wiping his hands on a towel as the lunch rush settled down. The place hummed with quiet conversation, the clinking of forks, the scrape of chairs, the soft murmur of old friends catching up over coffee. It was his. All of it. The people, the place, the life he had built with his own two hands. A couple of regulars waved as they headed out. "See you tomorrow, Mike," one called. He smiled. "Count on it." Not long ago, he would have doubted it, would have braced for something to go wrong, for the past to rear its ugly head again. But not anymore. He had built something strong, something real, and nothing, not Chloe's betrayal, not the years of struggle, not even his own doubts, could take it from him now. That night, he and Sienna sat on the porch, a blanket wrapped around both of them as the stars flickered overhead. Sienna held a mug of tea, steam curling in the cool air. "What's on your mind?" she asked softly. Mike took a sip of his beer, staring out at the dark yard, listening to the quiet creak of the trees. "Nothing," he said, then smiled. "Everything." She squeezed his hand, leaning her head on his shoulder, and he let himself breathe. No ghosts, no guilt, no weight pressing on his chest. Just this, just Pess. Chloe had wanted him to crumble, to be haunted, to feel the same helplessness she had once made him feel. Instead, he had done the one thing she never expected. He had moved on. And in the end, that was the best revenge of all. Like the story? Hit subscribe and stay tuned, because sometimes the best way to win is to just keep going. Closing the Past, Part 7, A New Beginning. The days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and life kept moving forward, simple, steady, and real. Mike no longer thought about Chloe, Stephanie, or Ela, not in the way he used to. They were nothing more than shadows in his past, echoes of a life he had left behind. His world was here. With Sienna, with their kids, with the diners he had built from nothing. And for the first time in a long time, he felt free. One crisp autumn morning, Mike stood in the kitchen, pouring himself a cup of coffee. Through the window, he watched the golden leaves drift lazily to the ground. The house was quiet, the kids still asleep upstairs, their backpacks lined up by the door. Sienna walked in, her hair messy from sleep, wrapping her robe tighter around her as she yawned. "You're up early," she mumbled, reaching for a mug. "Couldn't sleep," he admitted, sipping his coffee. "Too much on my mind." She raised an eyebrow. "Good thoughts or bad ones?" Mike chuckled. "Good ones, for once." Sienna smiled, leaning against the counter. "Yeah?" He nodded, setting his cup down. "I was thinking maybe it's time to open a fourth diner." Sienna blinked, then grinned. Another one? You sure? Mike shrugged, but there was excitement in his voice. Why not? The first 3 are doing great. I know the perfect location. It just feels right. Sienna studied him for a moment, then walked over and wrapped her arms around his waist. I think, she said, resting her head on his chest, that if anyone can do it, it's you. Mike kissed the top of her head, letting himself sink into the warmth of the moment. She was right. He could do it. Because he wasn't the man he used to be. He wasn't the desperate kid working at a gas station, waiting for life to happen to him. He wasn't the heartbroken fool left in the dust by people who never truly cared. He was more, stronger, wiser, and he had built something worth holding on to. Later that morning, as the house came alive with the chaos of kids getting ready for school, Mike grabbed his keys and kissed Sienna goodbye. Then he stepped outside, breathed in the cool morning air, and smiled. There was no past to run from anymore, only a future to build. And he was ready. A heartfelt thank you. Thank you for taking the time to read this story. Every view, like, and comment from you is a huge encouragement, giving me the motivation to continue writing more meaningful stories. I hope this story has brought you genuine emotions, a moment of reflection, or simply a brief escape from the busyness of life. Don't forget to subscribe. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any upcoming stories. And if you have any thoughts, feelings, or feedback, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. I always look forward to hearing from you and improving to bring you the best content possible. Thank you so much. See you in the next story.